dating apps first came out, there was like the stigma, right? Like, don't say you're on a dating app. If you were on a dating app, maybe you internally and externally didn't want to tell people because it made you look bad. Like, oh, you can't meet somebody in real life. Like, that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of weird. Whereas now it's become more common and we're so trained to meet on the dating app. Meeting in real life is kind of rare, where it's like if you meet your partner in real life, it's like, oh, wow, congratulations. Like, how'd you do that? So,
Yeah, and we always talk about that analogy of like if you're not on a dating app, it's kind of like not applying to jobs if you want a job. Like you're just kind of sitting back and thinking you're going to meet somebody and not doing anything to try to. It's like the only real way to put yourself out there to meet somebody.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, we talk to like many different people, matchmakers, dating app people, and my opinion, I don't like to say that we're better than any company or any dating app. We're just different. And I think the more you put yourself out there through any channel, you're doing the right thing because you don't know where that person's going to be that you meet. So I think I agree that just do it all if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I will say that like myself and then also a lot of the people that we have asking us questions, the biggest reason they get burnt out from dating apps is because they spend too much time in that pen pal phase. So that's why I do think that there is such a good concept with your app is because like if you just sit there and you're messaging with somebody for like 2 weeks before even going out with them, first of all, you run out of things to talk about. And second of all, you get bored and you're, I think, less likely to go out with them versus like you're already intrigued by them, like the example you gave, and you just get right out and start talking to them and get out on a date is a lot more effective in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's some science behind the statistics of each day that you spend talking to somebody, whether it's through text or on an app, your odds of connecting with them just drop drastically. Because like I was saying earlier, we get into this rejection mindset of let me find a reason not to meet this person, or let me like Google them and figure out who they are. And like in the real world, before dating apps existed, when you went on a first date with somebody, it took trust and time to like build those layers or for like you to share things with that person. And we get the question from a lot of women like, oh, I want to get to know the guy and Google him before I meet him to feel safe. And I'm like, that sounds great in theory. And of course, like I always want the women to feel safe. But if you Google somebody and find out maybe some article about them 5 years ago that's not true, or the way they view some point that doesn't really matter, and then you're like, I don't like the way that that guy reacted to that situation. It's like, well, you didn't even give him the opportunity to present himself to explain the situation to you. You just rejected him right away.
Yeah, you also might put yourself in the position to be like more nervous for the date if you become like obsessed with this person because of what you find about them and you're planning your future and all this and getting like 7 steps ahead of yourself before you even go out with them. So it could go like either direction.
And I think the beauty of like meeting someone in real life, you kind of have that instant attraction or there's something there that pulls you to this person and then you set up a date. It's a great scenario. But on an app, I think like what apps try to do is replicate that of like here's a snapshot of them. Like you get to know a little about them, but it is like instant attraction. I mean like dating apps, you really are swiping because of most of the time I do think if you're physically attracted to the
You can
person.
say it. You can say it.
I like then when you start talking back and forth, like that's just not a scenario, like that's not replicating what would happen in real life. I think what your app is doing is getting people just on the date. Like you already made a first judgment, which you do when you see someone out, you're seeing someone on an app, and then you just cut to the chase and you take out all of that time, like you said, to second guess, find someone else. You could talking to 5 different people on an app, it's rare unless you're on like a dating show that you have 5 people in front of you in a bar or in a room where you get to like decide who you want to be with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I read something yesterday that said we're so programmed to use dating apps the wrong way that if you meet someone interesting on a dating app, you go out and have a great date, no matter if it went good or bad, you're going to go back home and go back on the dating app because you're so trained to.
Mm-hmm.
So if it went well, you're not giving that person the respect of, hey, we had a good date. Let's, build on that because now you're back in the game with somebody else. Or it went so bad that you're like kind of filling a void of being like, oh, I still need to meet somebody. Let me go back on the app right away. And we like don't give ourselves that time to like self-reflect and be like, okay, I went on a bad date. Let me take a few days to figure out like why it was bad. Maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I need to just cool it for a second, but we're just so programmed to be like dating app, dating app, dating app. And it's like not healthy in my opinion.
No, I've definitely opened up the apps like while my date is in the bathroom.
I feel like we've all done that before.
Yeah.
It's like muscle memory, I feel, at some
Mhm.
point.
It is. It's
Yeah.
like when you open Instagram, look through
Yeah.
it, close it, and then open it up right away
Yeah.
by instinct.
Yes,
Yeah,
I do
it's
that all
horrible.
the time.
Yeah.
Are you in a relationship?
No,
So you're on apps dating?
no, I'm not actually.
Oh.
I have been on an app in like 7 years, except for First Rounds on Me, but I don't use it for. I don't like to
dating.
mix the social and the business.
Yeah,
I use it just to
yeah.
look through and make sure it's working and give him annoying notes on it. But yeah, I don't know. I agree that it's a useful tool. I am in a couple pools for matchmakers, right? So we had a couple
Oh.
matchmakers on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and they they have clients, but then they have a pool of people that they're
Right.
not looking for us, but they're if we fit someone's what someone else is looking
Mhm.
for, they'll match us up. And I do like how it works because you go on these dates and I don't know anything about, I don't know what they look like, and they give you like a 3 or 4 sentence paragraph beforehand to like give you a little bit of background, and that's like an hour before. And I'm tempted to try to like Google, but I'm like, nah, let me just go on the date and see how it goes. And
Yeah.
I haven't had one that I've like been crazy about, but everyone's been cool. They're all like successful, right? Because a lot of people are like, what type of, I don't want to meet someone who would need a dating service, but it's like, no, these people are just so busy and successful in their lives that they're using this also as a tool because they don't have time to meet people, or they're only meeting people in their work circle, which they don't really want to date. So it's a very interesting experience in itself.
Yeah, and they have to be serious about it because it costs so much money.
Yeah. Yeah, some of these people are paying like 50 grand a year for
Wow.
Yeah.
like professional matchmaking.
I definitely did have that mindset about it before, that it was like all people that like just couldn't meet somebody anywhere. But then we had a few matchmakers on our podcast as well, and they explained it the same way, and it makes so much sense. It's
Yeah.
people who are like super busy or just like don't have the time to go out and try to meet people, or sometimes for like confidentiality purposes if they like,
Right,
don't-
exactly.
if they can't be on apps.
Yeah, it's just a next level tool, essentially.
You guys are in relationships, right?
Yeah, Mia is married and I have a boyfriend.
Oh, congratulations. How did you and the husband meet?
We met at work, so in real life, but we didn't start dating for years. And I always like to think, like, because we talk so much about dating apps, like, I don't know. Like, I can't be certain if I would have seen his profile and swiped on it, because who knows? I could have read into a million things, and I don't know. I want someone who has a different job, not the one that I'm in, or I would have picked someone else. So I think I'm just curious about that, but I do think that if you are attracted, like, you don't, like we said earlier, you don't want that time to like start asking yourself all those questions, because it was kind of like a slow build of being friends first and then getting into a relationship.
How did you approach that at work?
I do think there
Broom
was
closet? Was it the broom closet?
No, it wasn't. It was just we were both in other relationships, which is the
Oh, really?
interesting part. So we were friendly, and we had Carleigh and I
I
she
worked
works
at
there
the same
too.
company.
Oh,
We all
okay.
met at work.
Yeah, and we were all just in our 20s. We had a very social job. We were out drinking we were out at social events where work was work, but we also saw all these people in most of our free time as well. So we just got to know each other, and I do think maybe from the beginning there was like that attraction, but I was in an 8-year-long relationship. He was in an 8-year-long relationship, so it was just like off the table. But we stayed in touch after we gotten different jobs and in the same industry, so we would still talk. And
So they never actually worked together while they were dating. I feel like that's the key.
That's
Like
Okay.
you can meet someone at work, but then you kind of both have to. One of you
Yeah.
has to leave.
Yeah, I feel like that can be the perfect situation, the way that it played out for you, because you knew different personalities and different levels, and like more of who they really are, and
Mhm.
like that trust was kind of already there, and it was just like there was no other step than to say, hey, like, we are
Right.
attracted to each other, we really like each other, do we want to make this a romantic thing? So I think that is like a rare, cool situation.
yes, it all worked out, I think, in the way that it was meant to. And it was interesting that we were both in the other relationships, because I kind of got to see, we both saw each other, how we were partners to our other people we were in relationships with, and then we kind of confided in each other when like we needed help. Like, we just became really good friends. And then
It's like When Harry
over
Met Sally.
time-
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a beautiful story.
Yeah. I'm tearing up a little bit over here. Yeah. All right, your turn, Carleigh. What do we got? How did you guys meet?
Just on a dating app.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Can we plug it? Which one?
Hinge.
That's what we met on.
Yeah. And it
Now,
was pretty similar. Like we did not talk that much before we went out the first time. I think I honestly don't know if it would have been as successful if we did chat for longer, but it was kind of like we matched and then we talked like a little bit back and
Mhm.
forth, and then he asked me if I wanted to go out like the following week, made plans, and then like didn't talk until that day when he canceled day of. And then we rescheduled for the next week, and then he didn't confirm, and so then like day of at like 2 he was like, see you tonight, and I was like, oh sorry, I literally hadn't talked to you in a week, like I didn't think we were going out anymore, so then I canceled. And then the following week we tried again, and then
Was
ended
that
up
was
working
that
out.
sec was your cancellation like kind of playing a game?
No, I
Or-
actually like, had made plans
Okay.
because at the time I wasn't living in the city. So I was living upstate where I'm from and commuting into the city to like go to work and see friends. And like I was coming in once or twice a week because it was
Mm.
only an hour and a half, but I hadn't planned on coming in because I hadn't heard from him. And I just kind of figured like cancel the first time and then like didn't confirm. So then I just said, sorry, you didn't confirm. And then for the first like month that we were dating, he like every single time like would confirm like the day before,
That's
2
great.
days before.
now, did you make the first date plans together, or did he kind of say, "Let's meet at this place at this time"?
He just planned it, and I kind of catfished him because I had my I had my dating app, like my location was still as if I was in the city because I had been in the city, and when I re-downloaded it I just kept it saying that I lived in the West Village where I had. And so like he thought at the time that I was living in the West Village, so he just chose the place that was in the West Village because he also lived there. And then when I got to the date and we were talking, I was like, oh, by the way, like I don't live in the city right now, I'm moving back next month. And then it was kind of funny because he actually had his Hinge settings to be just a 1 mile radius of the West
Smart. Living
Village.
in the
So
West Village,
like
that's smart.
he really thought he was meeting someone who like lived right around the corner.
That is a catfish, but I'll give you credit that you were actually confirmed to move back already.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, I already
Alright.
was moving
What
back.
was the
That's okay, though.
place?
What?
What was the place in the West Village?
Oh, we went to Soho House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a nice first date. Good for
Yeah.
Nice. I think what we were talking about before with kind of like not dating app fatigue, but people like kind of being sick and tired of them. I
Yeah.
think New York, because we always talk about how New York is by far the best dating app city. And I feel like it's an LA thing where LA people are much flakier, right? And it's geography plays a huge part in dating in LA. Like we're talking about 1 mile radius in the West Village. Like people are not willing to drive like 5 miles for a date in LA, right? So I think that it's much more not accepted in New York, but common practice. Whereas LA is just schedules are different, and here it's like happy hour culture and dating culture after work, and it's very different. So I think that New York in general is always going to be the king of like these types of things, and it just fits the culture better. So LA,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think
it's
people,
different. It's
people are
different.
just forward here. And when I first had the idea, I was living here, and I thought, okay, if I wanted to make a dating app, what would be best for me? And I was like, okay, if I open my phone and I see someone in the West Village, and I'm like, hey, meet me at this bar in the West Village, and then we just go meet at that bar where you could literally just walk to a bar in the West Village. And yeah, that concept I think flows so well here because there's so many people, so many bars, and it just could happen. Whereas in LA, it's just a little more. You have to put a little more time and thought into what you're actually doing.
Yeah, I
Right.
had a hard time dating in LA. I lived there for only like a month and a half last summer, and I went on like 2 dates because I felt like it was like it was so hard to coordinate. The city, it's a
It
lot
really
easier.
is. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough.
How did you compare the men that you dated, those two guys versus?
I think I'm more of a New York City
Yeah,
girl.
that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Were they like LA natives, or had they been there for a long time?
Yeah, like
Okay.
everyone that I matched with, I felt like had either been there for a long time or they were from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some common things that you hear from your friends or people that listen to your podcast about what they are, are having maybe the main issues with dating these days or dating apps? Like, what are some common things that you guys hear a lot?
I think for sure the talking too long on an app and a plan never being made. Also, attraction on first dates. We get so many questions and have that conversation with so many of our guests of like, should you give it a second chance if there's no spark? So
Yeah, answer that for me right now, because
Yeah, I was gonna say
We
you
talked
should
about
you should
that.
talk to Steve about that because when he tells me about his first dates, he usually, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't do a second date if he doesn't have some type of attraction or spark.
Do you
What-
even do the first date if you don't have some type of attraction?
well, so going on these.
Oh, because you don't see them first.
Yeah, and I mean, I
Oh.
don't only go on these
Yeah.
these types of dates, but what I say, and I don't know if this is
exclusive blind date.
right, only blind dates. What I say, and I don't know if this is right or wrong or good or bad, but it's like if I leave the first date not feeling like I can't wait to see that person again, I don't really want to go on a second date. And sometimes, like if I do vibe well with the person, we have a really good time, like I will be like, yeah, I'll try it again and see what happens. But like, I think for me, it's like there's been dates where I can't wait to see that person again, or it's like people that I've maybe not gone on a date with, but met out, and it's like, oh, I really hope I can go on a date with that person. So I don't know if that's a good or bad indicator. What do you think?
Well, do you think that there are just like sparky people, like
Mhm.
somebody who just gives everybody a spark?
That
Because
could be it. That
that's
could
what
be the
I
case.
think. I
Yeah.
think that like I do think it's important to have attraction, and I would be the same way. I wouldn't go on another date if I wasn't excited to see the person. Even though I might sometimes give the advice to somebody to do that, I just like personally could never get myself
Do as I
to do
say,
it.
not as I do. The classic.
Yeah.
But I have found that like in the past I was always attracted to people that just I felt like such a spark with, and it wasn't until I realized that like probably everybody feels a spark from that person because it's just like their energy. And then I kind of was able to like decipher between this person just having like a attractive personality or some like kind of like an attractive energy, and me and a person having like a vibe together. I feel like that's like kind of different, and you can feel that on a date. Like,
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the one thing I'm very conscious about word choice, and I think like sometimes the words like they mean obviously mean different things to different people, right? Like spark versus chemistry versus all these things, and it's like I think I don't like to generalize like that because you never know what the actual how
Yeah.
you define spark versus how I define spark. So, but I totally agree with what you're saying. Like if someone just has an incredible personality that everyone gravitates towards, then it's that seems like it's easy to suck you in and be like, oh, I love this person. But it's like, no, they treat everybody like that, which could be a good thing, right? But
yeah, because I feel like I have so many friends who go on a first date and they're like, "But we had such a spark," and then I never heard from him again. And it's like he probably has that spark with
Right.
a lot of people he goes
Mm.
out with, and it's not like doesn't mean that they're gonna call you or want to go out again.
Yeah. I do like not using those words though, because like they're so used and we
Yeah.
hear it all the time. So I love how you just said, am I excited to see this person
Mm.
again? And I think when I was dating, and if I were to be dating now, I don't think I would force myself to go out a second time because like maybe have all these other attributes I'm interested in, but I wasn't excited. I do also think it depends because I feel like I have friends who just never feel excited after a date. So
Mm.
maybe it's like give it another try. Maybe you need another few hours with this person to feel comfortable. I do think it's very dependent, but like Carly, I don't think I would just make myself go out again if I wasn't excited to
Mm.
see them again.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I think it's very unique, right? It's different for every person. And I think what I learned was, of course, your attraction is going to be like what gets you to the first date, right? Like you're going to have
Mhm.
some type of, okay, I think that person's attractive. And then for me, it was like there's a lot of attractive people in the world, right? On that first date, do you more attract me emotionally? Like, how's your EQ and how's our emotional intelligence? And if that's firing, then I'm like, okay, now I really want to see you for a second date. And if the first date's more of an attraction, but it's like dull conversation and like the way we see life doesn't really add up, it's more of like a hesitation of like, okay, like I'm really attracted to this person and maybe I will sit through another date with him just to kind of see if it's like a casual thing.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking for a long-term partner, if I don't have that like EQ emotional firing, then I'm just like, not for me.
Yeah, I will say I think one of the biggest things that we hear that people deal with, also because a lot of our listeners are women, I think like they don't really have a huge issue getting out on a first date or like finding someone to go on a date with them. I feel like with dating apps, again, that's like pretty easy to find someone to go on a date with. But everyone always has an issue understanding like what the other person wants or like getting
Mm.
past the early dating stage or like defining the relationship, being exclusive, like knowing what to do once you find somebody who you actually do like is like what most of our audience struggles with for sure.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
would say that that's one of the issues with the current dating apps, right? And again, I don't think that our app is better, but say you're on Hinge, Tinder, or Bumble, you might really want to go on a date and like find a long-term partner when the guy is just like, I'm just here to like have a drink with somebody. And the misunderstanding is like what causes a lot of friction. That's when it turns into pen pals. That's when it turns into like taking it personal. And I think if you both have the same understanding, like, okay, we're gonna meet and see like what could happen, I think that is, a really good sign. There was something else I wanted to say on top of that, but I forgot.
I'll tell
I don't
you.
remember.
Feel free to open your spin drifts. By the way, don't hold back.
I
First round's on us. Crack those bad boys open if you want. No pressure. I'm not peer pressuring.
Oh,
you.
the
Yeah.
other thing I was gonna say was New York. When I lived here, and I think your opinion would be better than mine because you're still here and you hear it from women, but there was a perception that there was a lot more men than women. So like men just were like, we're more sought after, and it was like a way for us to kind of use that as an excuse to just play the field a lot longer. Do you guys see that and hear that from women? or do you think it's kind of even?
I'm not sure. This reminds me of college. I feel like, when you went to college or school, I remember we looked at the percentages of males versus females and factored that into like what the dating ratio would be like.
Were there
I
more
don't,
men?
I think at my school there
Yeah.
were more women.
Because the city's more women, right? Like a lot
I
more women, or like a lot more single women.
I think, yeah, especially when you get to a certain age. And I think that, I don't know, I think this is obviously making a generalization, but I feel like in terms of like men dating women, a lot of them on apps like aren't using the apps as often as women, or like aren't using them as intentionally. So a guy might have his app profile set up and like match with you, and then you might just like not hear from him for like 2 weeks because he's not going on it. But girls, I feel like, go on it like every day, and they're like ready to chat with people or like make a plan to go out. So I feel like that's similar. Like I feel like because guys, in my opinion, I think guys have so many more options, but I don't know. I feel like,
Yeah, I think the key word is intentional. We use that all the time, like genuine and intentional. I feel like women do lead with those qualities. Yeah, and I think men have gotten into this kind of validation mode where it's like,
Mhm.
if you like them, like us, it's like, oh, that made my day. I don't really need anything else because another
Yeah.
woman's gonna like me tomorrow, and that's gonna validate my day tomorrow. And I think most men, again, I don't want to generalize either, will only try and find a partner when maybe it's like a necessity at
Mhm.
some point.
yeah, I also think that women are more likely to listen to podcasts, follow Instagram accounts, listen to like, or hear all these different rules, and they get like kind of confused with all the things they're supposed to
Mhm.
do. And I don't know, do men like listen to rules too and think about like the things they're supposed to do when they're dating?
I
Or
would
do
say
you
it's
just
a
kind of like do
lower
it?
percentage, I would think,
Yeah.
just based on people I know.
Yeah.
But that is very interesting. I think that definitely plays a lot because I talk about this all the time, and I'm sure Joe's probably tired of me talking about it. But like,
Never.
I kind of have a thing again, like TikTok therapist and meme culture. Like, people will base their entire relationship off a fucking meme that they saw, and it's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna break up this guy
Mhm.
because this meme said a funny thing that is true, maybe true about this guy I'm saying. And it's like they'll end the whole relationship based off a meme, and I think it's a problem. But I do think that more women certainly do that stuff and probably do more work, or at least
Yeah.
hear about the type of work that you should do on yourself.
Yeah. I I totally agree with what you said about men kind of loving that serotonin boost of a like. And I'm curious if you, from like yourselves when you were dating, if you knew what your dating intentions were ahead of it, or does it take meeting someone to kind of know what you want?
I didn't have an intention. So I think for me it was a validation thing, right? Like even in New York when I got to LA, it was more of there's so many women, like I just want to have fun, and I maybe wasn't even mature enough to realize like I should date intentionally, or if I'm going to date casually, at least make it known. And I think I was in it for the rush. And then I think what it took for me was like a woman to challenge me and be like, listen, there's a connection here. I'm not gonna let you like dick me around. So I'm gonna make you grow up a little bit. And I was like, oof, all right.
How soon
Um,
did she say that?
I think
10
third
minutes in.
third date. And
Yeah.
I think every guy needs that kind of like smack in the face of being
Mhm.
like, if you want to date casually and be single, that's totally fine. Just do it with a little bit better of an intention, but don't string women along, because a lot of guys I think aren't mature enough to like let a woman know that, where it's like 2 dates go well and he knows he's not into them, and instead of ghosting, you could just go up to a woman, and it's not easy, and just say like, hey, like I'm having a really good time, you're really cool, I'm probably just not in the headspace, or I don't feel a deep enough connection to like pursue this, and I don't want to waste your time. Of course it's hard, of course the woman's probably going to take it a little personal, but I think we as a society have to just get a little bit more mature with the way that we date. So I think for me, I had no idea until she was like, listen, buddy,
Grow up.
I'm not gonna let you
Grow
string me
up,
along.
fuck up. I'll come back to that too, but I wanted to ask why you think men have more options.
Um, I
And
guess
what do you
like
mean by that
for
exactly?
yeah, so I feel like that was phrased not how I meant it, but I think how I mean it is that I feel like it's more in their court. Like I feel like it's more up to the
Mhm.
man. It's not
A high quality
necessarily.
man, probably.
It's not.
Not all men.
Yeah, I want to go back to that term, but it's not necessarily that they have more options, but like I feel like in a lot of scenarios, at least people who write into us and ask us questions, it seems like it's like up to the man to decide if they're in a relationship or not, or like up to the man to decide what's going to happen next in the relationship. I see that happening
It's
so much.
well, when I say high quality, we can talk about what that means, but I
Yeah.
feel like it's probably one of those, like, we talk about the stat where it's like the top X% of guys get all the women on
Yeah, the top
dating
ten
apps.
percent gets 90% of the likes.
Right.
Right. So it's probably women writing into you guys or calling into you guys or whatever. It's saying like, and they're all chasing like the same guy. And it's
Yeah.
like, but he has a pick of, 50 women that he can choose from. But I feel like if it's just like an average dude that doesn't really maybe have great social skills, doesn't have his life together, he doesn't have
Right.
options like that. So I think it's everyone clamoring for the same small percentage of men.
Yeah.
Right.
If the men have more options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you guys think, and this could be a touchy subject, but I'm just opening it up and want to hear your perspective. Do you think because, men can have children older and like they can wait, right?
Mhm.
And maybe if a woman does want to have kids, she needs to kind of be like, okay, like I do need to meet somebody soon, and kind of gets into that mindset where, guys do have more options because they can extend it and extend it. And you could be
Yeah.
45 and still go after 25-year-olds. It could be a little creepy, but if they want to do that, they can. Whereas women probably can't do that if they want to have kids.
Yeah, I do think so. And I don't even think it's an intentional thing. I think that I do think, well, obviously women can have children much later, and I don't think that timeline should like rush you into any sort of relationship, but I do think it's on your mind whether you're conscious of it or not. And that will make you maybe get to the point where you want to be more intentional with dating sooner. Whereas a guy doesn't have, or most don't have that same type of like timeline or fantasy that they like always grew up thinking they were going to like match up against. So even if it's not a conscious thing, I do think it plays out in dating for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think you said it way better than I did, but the mindset, right? Like women get the mindset of like, I'm not going to rush having a kid with somebody, but my mindset is I want to start looking for a lifetime partner. Whereas maybe a guy at 30, 35 is not even thinking about that at all. And he's just like, if it happens at 45 or 50, then that's when it's going to happen. But I think the mindset was the key thing.
Mm-hmm.
Touchy subject, though.
Yeah.
No, I think it's true. I think I feel like, yeah, I have wondered before if it makes a man who's on a dating app or meeting women less likely to want to date someone who's like in that age range where they know that it's like what the person's thinking of, and if they get in a relationship with that person doesn't mean they're gonna be like pressured to like settle down more quickly, and so if it just makes them more likely to date someone who's like younger or older, like out of that like small range. I don't know. I never really thought about it when I was.
Well, we're
like,
not good with pressure because
Yeah.
so Hannah's same age as me, right? So 32, and meeting her, I was like, okay, we're in that like
Yeah.
phase of life, and I was just like a dumb guy. I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm gonna be having kids and getting married soon, and I got overwhelmed a little bit. So innately, I like pushed back, and I was like, I pulled back, and I was just like, well, let me take a second to think about this, and then obviously you communicate and you get through it. But I think when men get hit with that rush really quickly, we're a little overwhelmed. And we brought up with someone else the other day. A woman asked like if a guy pulls back, that means he's not into you. And I was like, no, that's so not true. Like I pulled back not because I wasn't into her, because I was too into her and I got scared.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like you hear that as an excuse, and it's like always like that's the classic like
I'm
guy
scared.
excuse.
Yeah.
I'm scared, and
Oh,
we
he's probably
always
just
say you're
scared.
not like no one's scared,
Well,
but there you go.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I feel like I have an interesting
100%.
perspective on this because I have, and I've talked about this a lot on our podcast, but like I lean toward like the avoidant attachment style. And so I'm like the same way. And I know it's like, I feel like it's more common for men, but like when I was like dating, I definitely got like scared or like would back away or pull away because I felt like the person was like trying to like not settle down, but like trying to define things or trying to like make things more serious. And I wanted that, but I like had this automatic reaction to
Yeah.
make me like not want to be in a relationship and like suddenly pull away. So I do see that when people are asking us advice and they see a guy doing that, I'm like, well, it's hard to say because like I would probably do what he's doing in this
Yeah.
scenario. And it does take the right person to be like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? And kind of like have that open communication. And that's like how I've been able to get past it for sure.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and I think you guys both said something interesting. You said the words "it depends," and then you just said something that I forgot. But it was a phrase.
Communication?
No, it was like kind of like that, where it was like basically my point is that every situation is different, right? And I feel like when people call in or listen to podcasts or seek advice, people will, if you don't know all the facts, they're just giving general advice, or it's advice based off their own life experience. Or I feel like everything can be true, just depends on the person and the situation and then the other person in the relationship. Like that girl at the at our podcast the other night, the live show. I think she was just like really seeking. She asked a very specific question that you need to know so much more information to be able to answer correctly. And she wanted an answer so badly, and it's like we kind of danced around it, but like you just can't do that unless you know everything, and it's not going to be helpful advice unless you really know all the facts and know probably even like her whole life history and dating history and the guy's dating history. So I think it's tough to be in positions of seeking information from someone that actually maybe can't give you the right answer or just give you too general of an answer.
Yeah, and I think that's not the problem with, but that is something that is to be considered with all of the dating advice, dating rules, dating guidance, podcasts,
Yeah.
like everything out there. It's so much skews so black or white, and when we get these questions, like I always wish I had a million more details,
Yeah.
and we usually say that in a response. And I think we take an approach that's very much, there's not one answer to this question, and this depends on so many factors like X, Y, and Z. And I do think every dating situation is so different. That's why we shy away from a lot of those blanket rules and all of that, because like my relationship was such a weird start. Like I don't, no one is going to have the same, or it's
Right.
unlikely that my personal lived experience is even going to match yours or Carleigh's. So it's just so, we try to like have all that in mind.
Yeah, I'll be the first. I'm a fucking idiot. Don't listen to a thing I say. Maybe them, but not me. I'll say it.
And what you guys are doing and what we're trying to do, and I think this new wave of dating and dating apps and relationship is like more so help that person feel good and comfortable with who they
Right.
are, right? It's like if you're trying to get dating advice, maybe don't use that dating advice to try and find a partner right away. Use that dating advice to be like, how could I be the best version of myself? Like what tools can I use to grow? And then innately you just get more attractive to, what you're trying to attract. So that's
Yeah.
like what we're trying to do. And I think that's what you're trying to do is just like make people feel more confident and comfortable with who they are.
Yeah, and like take what works for you in terms of the dating rules. Like we actually talked about that with Lauren when she came on our podcast, because it was like, I think we were talking about the don't stay on a first date for too long rule.
Mhm.
And for some people that should be a rule. Like if that's something that messes you up and you become like super attached to somebody, if you stay on a long date with them, then don't go on a long date. But if you're able to accept that like just because you have a great 4-hour date doesn't mean you're gonna go out again, then stay on the 4-hour date if you want to. Like that's what I would do, because like I would be fine with it then if it didn't continue to date too. But I know people who wouldn't be. And it's the same thing with like don't sleep with someone early on, or don't like, I don't know, whatever, all the, don't send like a text after to say thank you, like all these
Yeah.
different rules. I feel like if that's a boundary for you, we like thinking of rules as like boundaries. So if that's something that like protects you, then do it. But it's really hard to give that advice and tell people this is what's going to work. This is what's going to like get you a relationship, because then you get into that relationship and you followed all these rules to get there. And then it's like you're in the relationship, but like then you start acting like yourself. And it's like, who are these people now that are dating? Because you were like kind of playing a part to get there. So kind of feels like a game to me when you think about all the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend and he's going through something now with someone he was dating. And he's like, well, should I text her? Should I not text her? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I said, like, if you text her, what's the best case scenario? Right. And I said, if you text her, what's the worst case scenario? And he said, well, I don't want to text her, but should I? I said, well, then no, because you're kind of you just want to text that person to like see if that door's still open and just kind of see how they react, when you should kind of figure out what you want first. Like, so don't put it on them. And again, if you want to text them and it's going to make you feel good and you have like some type of outcome that you want, that's great. If you don't want to text them because you want to get over them, then that's also great. Just like do what makes you feel more comfortable.
Yeah. I love that you just said that. I always think back to Carleigh and I. Like the reason we have this podcast is because we went
tell
to
us
each
that. Get
other
into
with
that.
so much relationship and dating questions, and I feel like I always would ask her like, should I be mad about this, or should I do this? And she's like, don't ask should I, like, are you mad? And that's how we approach anything, of any of those questions of should I act this way, should I stay on the date too long, should I have sex with him yet, like what do you want?
Right.
Why is someone else figuring
Yeah.
out these questions for you? And it's not like I don't believe that there is a set of guidelines that are going to make someone like you. I think the set of guidelines you have, that Carleigh just said, is to make yourself happy and make yourself feel comfortable and confident in this dating process that you're in.
Yeah, and I think through like social media and through all these new easy ways of communication, we're like looking at the outside world so much, right? And we don't realize that that's the best version of everybody, and that's the best case scenario for everybody, right? So like, don't put that pressure on yourself on a first date in a relationship of what should I do, and ask for everyone's advice. It's
Yeah.
like, I think the more advice you ask from friends and family about your relationship, the worse,
Yeah.
because like only you and that person know the truth, right? So as much as you can keep it in that little bubble and figure it out, that's great. And if you actually do need a third perspective or someone that you really trust, it's like, go in that and be like, listen, I value your opinion. Don't side with me just to side with me. Give me like your honest assessment of like this situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, our world's so fast
Therapy.
now. Our world's so fast now. It's just like, does this work? It's like, I don't know. Does
Yeah.
it work?
But to answer your question, we started the podcast because, well, basically we met at work, like we said earlier, and we were kind of just like work friends. We went to a lot of like, we had a lot of events and like
What was
happy hours
work?
and stuff. We worked in the media industry and we were at a media agency. And so like there was a different like happy hour, dinner event, like every other night. So we were always out together. So I think because of that, we didn't really make an effort to like hang out outside of work. But then when we both went and worked at different companies, then I was actually out with Mia's now husband and we ran into Mia. And then that whole summer was kind of like a time when Mia and I became really good friends and Mia started dating her now husband. And so she was had recently come out of another relationship and was getting into this relationship. I had just come out of like a terrible relationship. And so we kind of just like bonded over like
Trauma.
yeah, relationship trauma.
But don't
And-
do that if you're going on a date, right?
what?
Don't. I said for people that are dating, don't do trauma bonding.
Oh
Yeah,
no, for
Don't
sure.
do
You got to
that.
get over that before you go on your date. So that was like, I feel like our whole first summer that we were becoming friends. It was like all we talked about really was like our dating lives and relationships and things like that. And then I think it was like a year later that we started listening to a lot of podcasts, and then we were like, oh, like every time we would listen to a dating podcast, we like wanted to be in the conversation. So then we're like, let's just start it. And now it kind of started more broad, and now it's niched down to dating and relationships because that's what everyone wants to hear about. For
And
sure.
what we always love to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's what we became friends over, because
Yeah.
I think, not to, be on a pedestal, but I think we have pretty good advice. And Carleigh was my sounding board for advice that helped me get into a long-term relationship. And I think we always had been that to each other. And we had that same mentality when we were giving each other advice of being open-minded. What do you actually want? Not subscribing to any rules. It was always very nuanced and catered to our lived experience. So why not just open up and let other people listen to that? Because we're just two average girls
Yeah.
dating in relationships in New York. So I'm sure this is something that everyone can relate to.
With
Yeah.
different experience too. Like Mia is a relationship person. I've been in like 2 really long relationships, and I was dating on dating apps for like a decade. So I feel like we have a very different
Yeah,
experience.
that's awesome.
And not just to plug this too, so much content out there is for dating, like how to navigate the apps, how like what all of this dating advice. And I don't find, or at the time, a few years ago, there weren't many podcasts of people in relationships, because it's like, hi, I still have problems here. Or, like there's
Yeah.
still conflict.
that's when
There's
the-
still
the real work starts.
Yeah.
yeah. So we wanted to have that kind of contrasting experience in the beginning, but also now, like with Carleigh dating someone in a newer relationship, we're kind of just like covering all of these lived experiences as we're having them. So it's been fun.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing this new wave, right? Of like, I think people just want to have more channels to communicate with other people, to
Yeah.
realize like, you're not the only person that's ever been in the situation. You're not the only person in the world that's dealing with that negative or positive thing. And I think being able to just talk about it more freely with the right people, right? Because I feel like this new wave of people on podcasts are being more intentional and genuine. And it's kind of like cool to be that way now, right? I don't know if you're familiar with guys like Jay Shetty and, Mel Robbins, but like I listen to them and it's like, I love hearing the positive side of things. And I
Mhm.
love like the fixing it together side of things, instead of maybe like 5 years ago, it was like, oh, if your partner's treating you that way, like fuck them, go get a new partner. It's like, no, like why don't we just communicate better now? And I feel like that's kind of trending, which I like.
Yeah.
And I like that you guys have a very honest, or even from the beginning, a very honest dialogue and very honest and open relationship where you tell it how it is, and there's no, trying to just make each other feel good or give some generic advice. And you reminded me of something earlier. So we had Dr. Taryn on the podcast, the live show the other night, and she talked a lot about story versus narrative, right? And I think that was super cool. That's something that I forget what triggered. One of you guys said something that triggered it, but like, the story is the facts of the situation, and the narrative is what we tell ourselves about or how we feel about it. And you can always change the narrative, right, to fix your situation or make your situation better. And I think that's really important for a lot of people going through stuff, is like, what are the actual facts of the situation, not what are your feelings telling you to do, or what are your friends telling you to do, but like, how should you react based off the facts.
Yeah, I love that. And we get a lot of questions, and I've had some really good, some of my favorite conversations on the podcast about overthinking and how to navigate like anxiety. And that's always the advice that, and I worked through with my own therapist about this. Like I said, had a really traumatic 8-year relationship that now I suddenly was in a new relationship, and I had to like get past all that. And I always had to remind myself of like exactly what you said, the facts versus what am I like creating here. And that comes up so much in dating, and everyone is carrying all of these stories around with them. And I love the just reminder to focus on that.
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
We got a big clock right there.
We're good.
Look at that.
Oh, shit.
We never had that before.
That's helpful.
Yeah. So what else we got?
So you guys said that you're just two average girls, but that's not true, because how many podcasts have you done?
160.
yeah.
367?
100, like almost
167.
170. Yeah.
So give them a little podcast nugget.
Yeah. So I heard it from Chris Williamson. Chris Williamson.
Williamson, yeah.
I always get him. We had a guy named Chris Williams on our podcast, an actor, and
Yeah.
I always get do you know Chris Williamson? He's a
No.
British guy that has a huge podcast. But he basically said that I think it's 90% of podcasts stop after 3 episodes.
Someone just told me this.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw
It
it,
might
so
have
it's
been
probably
when we were
going
on
around.
our meeting.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. So yeah, 90% of podcasts stop after 3 episodes, and then of the 10% remaining, only like 10% go past episode 21. So by doing it like 21 or 22 episodes, you're in the top 1% of all podcasts.
Wow.
So you guys are
Love to
way
hear
up there.
Yeah.
We literally heard that the day we released number 22, just
Wow.
completely coincidentally. It was really cool.
Do you find that it's harder or easier to date after talking to so many experts about dating?
Oh, good
That's a great
question.
question.
Probably easier.
Okay.
I think I'm also going on a lot more dates.
Yeah.
Because I started really learning about myself and learning about like
Mhm.
what I want and don't want. Because I was not like a huge dater for a couple of years. But yeah, now I'm definitely going on more, and I don't really know. I think I'm thinking about it all more. I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
going on more dates, but I'm definitely thinking about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very interesting.
I felt like the same thing happened to me. I was like, sometimes I would leave an episode like inspired to go on a dating app or go out on a date. And I do feel overall like it was easier, I guess, like just because, like you said, I was learning more about myself. I was learning like the things that were messing up my dating life and how to fix them and what I wanted and everything like that. But I also found some parts of it harder just because I feel like I was picking up on like all these little things, and I was kind of like over analyzing things based on all the different advice that we've gotten. And I also do feel like some people, it takes a certain person to want to date someone who talks about dating publicly, because
Yeah.
like you probably don't.
I try not to
like,
get too specific. I had one
Yeah.
incident in the fall that I regret, but
Wait, like talking about somebody that you dated?
yeah, and
yeah.
no one except for the person that heard it would have known. But yeah, it was a shit show for like a week.
Yeah.
That had to do some serious damage control. But I'll probably get in trouble for this, bringing it up again. But yeah, so I learned. I don't want to put anybody on blast. Anyway, I was more talking about my experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try not to.
Yeah, because
specific.
it's not intentionally putting someone on blast, but like you said, like your experience helps people. And so like if you're talking about a certain subject and you have something that's applicable, then it's like natural to talk about it. But I feel like, yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah, certainly.
I love it too. Just like even being married, just talking to men and women about dating, you just learn so
Yeah.
much. Like every episode, just everyone's perspective is so unique. Everyone teaches you something different. Everyone has a different angle. And the more we do this, it's just so fascinating to understand how everyone operates so differently. And then we can kind of just learn from each other. And I think it's awesome. But I do want to ask you, because you kind of are the one who's been dating out of the two of you the most recently, have you had any bad dating experiences,
Oh
especially
yeah.
in New York? And can you share one with us?
I mean, I definitely had some bad dating experiences. I feel like I had a lot more in my like mid 20s than like as I got older and was able to like identify people who were gonna not be great. But for the most part, like the biggest issue that I had going out on dates from apps is that like I just would immediately know when I met them in person that I wasn't attracted to them in real life. And I
Mhm.
feel like it's so hard to know that from like a picture. It would be like their voice or just like, and then it's like you feel like you wasted so much time if you did spend even like a few days talking to them. That's why like again, like the not to plug your app again, but that's why the concept makes so much sense. But let's see. Have I had? Can you think of any bad dating? Oh, I
The
did
one
have a
that
funny
came to mind
experience.
was the guy who had like 13
Inch
rum
what?
and cokes before you got
Oh,
there.
that was a blind date.
No.
It was your kind of date. I went on a blind date once when I
Who
was
set it
set
up?
up. So this was a long time ago. This was like when I graduated college. I was like just out of college. I was working at a coffee shop. And one of the customers set me up with like a guy that worked for him. He was like a regular or worked for him. He was a regular customer. And the guy like gave his employee like his corporate card to take me out on a date. It was like a weird scenario. The guy had 13 rum and cokes.
No way.
And we were out to dinner. Like it wasn't even like we were out for drinks. And so he was just so drunk. Like that was pretty much there's not much more to it
I
besides
hope you
that
didn't
it was
split
like
the bill.
he put it all on this dude's card. I don't know what was in it for this guy, but the other one that came to mind was kind of funny when I was living in Chicago.
Wait, what? I just need to. What did the waiter say? Like bringing over 13
He just
rum and
kept
cokes.
bringing them. Like he kept
That's
being like
insanity.
another one,
But
another
how
one.
drunk
That's so
And
many
I
rum
had
and cokes.
2 drinks in the whole. It was like quick. Like he was like sucking them down. It was
Wow,
like-
that's impressive.
Yeah. And where were I think we were at like Catch or something. We were at like a
Catch
nice,
always gets plugged on
it
our
was like
podcast.
yeah, I
it
don't
does.
know. This was like 10 years ago. at this
Anyway,
point.
sorry. Let's.
When I lived in
mind-blowing.
Chicago, I feel like it's a very small dating scene, especially when I was 29, I think. And so like I feel like everyone who's 29 in Chicago is married. And so there were not that many people to go out with. And I went on a lot of dates because I had just moved there and that was a great way to meet people. And so I was out on a date and it was like not a good date. And then I saw that there was somebody there who I had been on a date with like 2 nights before.
Oh god.
And then I was like trying to avoid him, but then it became unavoidable because he walked up because he was like good friends with the person that I was out with.
Ooh.
And then so like he introduced me to this guy and I had just been on a date with him a few nights earlier and we both just kind of pretended that we hadn't been. It was so awkward and I just ended up leaving and never seeing either of them again, but it was like this is too small of a city
That's
to
like
be
a Sex and the
dating.
City
Is
story.
that what drove you to move back? That one
Yes.
incident?
Yeah, it's just that one. No, I just miss New York.
Okay,
Yeah.
feel you.
Yeah.
Do you have a rapid fire?
Yeah, we could go through our typical rapid fire.
Because I do want to do a rapid fire just
Let our-
because
Yeah, let our audience get to
and
know you
audience
guys a
know
little
that just
better.
because this episode is shorter does not mean it's boring. We have 2 podcasts today, so we have to squeeze them both in.
So we usually just do, in typical rapid fire fashion, question answer. So like we could do whoever wants to answer it first can answer it first, and then we'll just
I'll let
no
you go
specific
first.
order. All right. What's the best thing? Actually, so today's rapid fire hot seat interrogation round is brought to us by Spindrift. First round's on us. Ladies' choice, Spindrift.
Yeah.
Founded in what I think was the only American style bodega in the neighborhood in Chinatown.
Ginger
Um,
tall boys too.
Yeah, that's all they had, but
Tall boys.
worked out well. All right. So what is the best thing that happened to you today?
This podcast recording. We've
Oh.
never recorded in person before,
Mm.
so this was so fun.
You're the only one,
Who's
plus our
ever
other
said that?
30 guests who have said that.
Ah.
What's the second best? That's usually my follow up. What's the second best? No, but we do appreciate that though. This is the highlight of my day as well. Sorry, Nick. If you
Oh.
still.
I've had a really boring day up
Okay.
to this point, but I do always if I don't start my day with like a workout and like mini meditation, my day is terrible. So
Okay.
that is always a highlight.
Awesome.
Yeah. I got a great sleep score last night.
Ooh, what app is that on?
My Aura ring.
Oh, nice.
So
What's a
it's
good
track
sleep
my
score?
sleep. It's in the 90s.
This
Like it gives you a
podcast.
score out of 100, and it's like one of the things that I obsess over every morning is if I had a good
Do you
sleep.
usually get a good sleep score?
I mean, it's usually pretty good, but it hasn't been great lately. So that was a
Okay.
good thing this morning.
Nice.
Okay,
Love
nice.
that.
What's the best compliment you've ever received?
That I'm very I have even temperament.
Nice.
Mine is like that I give honest advice. So I feel like I'm often told that people come to me if they want to hear like what I actually think versus like what they want to hear.
Nice.
That's
Love
great.
that.
All right, favorite date spot could be anywhere.
Ooh.
I'm excited for this. Hope they're in New York.
My first date with my husband was at Terroir Wine Bar.
Oh,
Mm.
great
And I
spot.
love wine bars for a first date.
Okay. Okay. Love it.
Where's a favorite date spot? I also like a wine bar. Um, there's a place on, I think it's on Hudson Street in the West Village, Staffili. Do you know it? Staffili. It's like a Greek wine bar, and I went there for a date, and they have outdoor seating, so that was a good outdoor.
Well, anything
Nice.
in the West Village is a good
Yeah,
date spot.
anything in the West Village for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Favorite rom com.
What is my favorite rom-com?
Mine's When Harry Met Sally, but you referenced it
Classic.
earlier, so
No, that's fair. I mean, we can't deny you that if
It's
it's
great.
your favorite. Yeah.
I've only seen it 2 weeks ago was the first time I saw it.
What?
It was amazing. I'm a big
Wow.
rom-com guy.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
I love Friends with Benefits.
That's
Although
good
I
one.
don't love the concept of Friends with
It
Benefits.
confuses
Okay.
us.
Fair.
Hey, it worked out for them, right?
Yeah,
In the
that's
end?
true.
Yeah, and spoiler alert, sorry. Last movie that made you cry.
Oh my god. That movie that just came out
Oh, I know
with
what you're gonna
Tom
say.
Hanks.
Yes.
Life of
Man of
Otto?
Motto. Yeah.
A Man Called
a
Otto.
Man Called
Oh my
Otto.
God, Otto.
It was great.
I was crying throughout the entire movie.
Wow. Really?
Netflix.
Yes.
It's on Netflix.
And I didn't want to cry like outwardly, so then I was just like hot and sweating.
Is it based on the book, A Man Called Ove?
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Yes.
Oh. I've never cried in a
was.
movie.
I love
Really?
it.
Never.
Yeah.
What?
Not even Marley and
Oh
Me?
yeah.
Marley
Heartless.
and Me.
Heartless.
I think I saw that in the theaters.
You didn't cry?
No, I don't
During
know.
what?
It's weird.
What'd you
Like I
say?
can,
Marley and Me.
Oh.
I'll
Wow.
feel really sad, but it just, I don't know. It just
You're
doesn't
stone
happen.
cold. I love
Okay.
it.
All right. New York.
cried
New
during
York has hardened you.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that
Most
question.
played song on your Spotify,
Ooh.
either currently or all time. What's popping right now?
Something Taylor Swift for
Mm.
sure.
Okay.
When I get my Spotify rankings at the end of the year, the entire like every top song, top albums, it's all Taylor Swift.
Didn't one of you go to the concert recently?
Mia did.
Yes.
Bless. Okay.
Yeah, I also listen to a lot of Taylor Swift, but my favorite artist is Billy Joel.
Nice.
Two
Yeah.
good ones.
Classic. All right. We got a couple more here. Go-to karaoke song.
I like feel like I've never done karaoke.
Whoa.
Never once.
Not even in like one of the private room situations?
No.
Oh.
Oh, Carleigh, you have to get her out for a karaoke night this week.
Yeah.
I feel like I would pick like a Shania Twain song.
I've done a lot of Shania
Nice.
Twain karaoke. I once did, because most of the karaoke is like, that I've done is like when you're in a separate room and you're with like your
Yeah,
friends.
the
Yeah.
best.
The only time I ever did it when it was just like at a bar where there was a stage was like Summer Lovin' from Greece.
Oh, that's a good
And it was with a
one.
random person.
I love
Did the
that.
crowd get going?
Yeah, everyone was
That's
into it.
Do you have a favorite quote or mantra that you live by or think about a lot?
Feel like you have one can in the can.
Yeah, I'm a big runner, so I always have like all these mantras in my head that I'm thinking like while I'm running a marathon because I feel like it's more mental for me. My favorite one that always comes to mind is how you do anything is how you do everything. Just kind of like live your life in like
Cool.
one way.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that. I don't have like very much a quote that I always come back to, but I was just thinking and talking about this the other day after being inspired from a podcast about habits is that the choices you make in the next few minutes determine how your next hour will be. The choices you make in the next few hours determine how your day will be in like days to week, weeks to month, months to years. So it really helps you like ground yourself in thinking about how you really want to spend your time
That's
to
awesome.
become the person you want to be.
Yeah, that's such a good one.
I actually heard this guy was like a really big army general or something, and he was doing a college commencement speech, and he explained making your bed in the morning. And you know, some people say like you should make your bed in the morning, and he like really went deep into it, and he brought up all those points. Like if you make your bed, it sets off your brain to saying you accomplished something, and then you accomplish the next thing, and then the next thing, and then he went kind of just the way you said
Yeah.
it, and that really stuck with me. And just saying like, yeah, every little detail can make the bigger details matter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you guys make your bed in the morning?
I do,
You
but
do?
I'm not a
Yeah.
tucker, so I do.
I don't.
Yeah, I have a top sheet and a comforter, so I just
Mhm.
will make it look nice and ready. It looks more like appealing when you.
Yeah, I'm
well,
not a tucker either.
Yeah, definitely not a tucker.
Oh,
I can't.
I am.
No.
Yeah.
I never made my bed, but now Hannah makes the bed. So
Okay. Yeah.
All right, last one. We actually answered this all as a company today on our Instagram. What does love mean to you?
This was in my wedding vows, and I feel like it's always my advice when people ask, like, do you know, how do I know this is the one for me? Like, does this person feel like home to you? Does it doesn't matter what anything else is, where you are or what you're doing. Like, do you feel like completely at home with someone? And that is what I had a drastic difference in one relationship and the next, and that is like one quality
It was a
I can
house versus a
really,
home.
yeah, or like dilapidated
Yeah.
apartment versus a home.
Rats, termites. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's like being at ease. Like something you said earlier kept sticking out to me when you were talking about your friend asking if you should text somebody. Like, I feel like I was in so many relationships where I would like send my friend like a screenshot of the conversation, like, what should I say? Or like thinking about like what I should do next. And for me, like feeling at ease, like being in love isn't being at ease in the relationship enough where like you're not thinking about those things. You're just like being yourself openly and you are open to them being themselves and just like the whole open communication and feeling like similar to what Mia said, like just feeling like natural to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think we did it as a company today, and yeah, one thing I said was like, just knowing that there's a deep connection with somebody, whether it's in a relationship or not, or like a friendship,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that that person's going to go through a lot of highs, a lot of lows. You're going to see a lot of different versions of that person, but never losing focus that you love them so much that it's not going to change your opinion of them. And I think that's really important in relationships and friendships, knowing that you have such a strong connection to this person that they can be their true selves and not feel judged by you because you do love them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that. That's like I've experienced that where I see someone do something and I'm like, if that was anyone else, it would bother me, and I'm like not even remotely bothered right now. I feel like that is a definitely a good feeling.
Yeah. We can wrap with Joe's favorite question.
Yeah, if you had one law in the world, it could be anything you want, as crazy as you want, that the whole world had to follow, what law would it be and why?
No ghosting.
No ghosting.
Okay.
You have to communicate how you're actually feeling.
Oh.
You're not allowed to
Ooh.
hold it in.
Love that.
Interesting.
We have a friend who is making this app called In Truth. So it's kind of like a Fitbit for your emotions. And it can tell when you're feeling excited, when you're feeling upset, when you're feeling nervous. And she's so fascinated by it because she's like, if all the politicians in the world wear the Fitbit while they're like speaking to people,
Yeah.
you're gonna just be able to tell the truth all the time.
Wow,
Yeah.
I need that device. That
It's
sounds
coming out
really
soon.
cool.
Yeah, we need those. All of us.
Yeah.
My husband needs that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anything else you guys want to talk about when we wrap up,
Where
or
can we
definitely
find
plug
you?
yourselves
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the pod and
Tell everyone where to find us.
You can find us on Instagram at Mostly Balanced Podcast, and anywhere you listen to podcasts, we release an episode on Mondays with guests or solo with each other.
Love
Yes.
that.
yeah.
Thank
I
you,
really
guys.
really enjoyed the two I listened to today. So you have a new subscriber. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
And we apologize for the short time here because we do have a lot more we could talk to you guys about. So we will probably ask you to do this again in the future, but it was an amazing hour and we really appreciate it.
We loved it, and we can
Yeah.
continue it when you guys come on our podcast.
Definitely.
absolutely,
Yes.
we might move back. Who knows? We'll be here
I
every week.
mean, you should.
Yeah. Well, Mia, Carleigh, thank you so much. It's been awesome. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.